Hello, found footage fans, and welcome to We Found a Tape. We're a podcast dedicated to all things found footage. Shaky cams, paranormal sightings, and everything with an authentic edge to make it all feel real. My name's John.
And I'm David.
And join us as we hit play and uncover what lies beyond the tape. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of We Found a Tape. Today we're headed straight into the woods and we're going to search for a Bigfoot. Are you ready, David?
I was born ready.
Hell yeah.
I brought my beef jerky.
Yeah, you're good. You're going to need it. Today we're going to be talking about Willow Creek from 2013. This is our first Bigfoot episode, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't think we've done a Bigfoot episode yet. We've done an alien one, but not a Bigfoot yet.
Yeah.
It's time for us to get out into the woods again and look for something other than a witch.
Exactly. And with this, it was directed by Bobcat Goldthwait, which many people know from the likes of the Police Academy movies and his other work in comedy. But this was written and directed by Bobcat Goldthwait. How did you feel about that, David?
So, I'm an 80s kid, so, Police Academy movies I did grow up on. But seeing this guy, and I don't know if I can take him seriously as a director, just like knowing who the characters that he played, right? But, it was unexpected that he did a found footage movie on Bigfoot, but, I can see the comedy aspects in it, so I get it,
Yeah, that was one of the main things that I think I did like about this movie is there was that sort of, at least an attempt at some comedy. Is something that he's famous for. It wasn't like silly voices or anything like that, but
little subtle jabs here and there.
Yeah, it's that sort of dry sort of comedy between the two of them.
Right.
I thought in points during this film was very funny. Yeah, I was quite surprised when I found out he made it. Comedians or those that are in the movies for playing these funny characters, like stepping out to like make these sort of movies, like horror movies. In this particular case, a found footage Bigfoot movie, like you said, David. So
yeah,
could that surprise me? So I definitely went into it. This is one I've seen a few times now. I first saw it a number of years ago. Yeah, I went into it blind, not really knowing what to expect, but looking at it this time through a more analytic lens, I think it sort of puts out some of its inconsistencies and issues a bit more, which maybe when I first originally watched it, I didn't pick up on as much.
It's definitely a lot different when you, like you said, look at it through an analytical lens, because that's why whenever we do these episodes, I like to watch the movie first to watch it solely for entertainment, and then go back and watch it again for the reviewing purposes, right? But when I first watched this years ago, there's a lot of this that I don't remember. Like, I felt like this movie went a totally different direction, but maybe I'm confusing it with a different Bigfoot movie. So Looking at it now, analyzing it, there was a lot of things that I was not too happy about through this movie, but we'll dive into that. But before we start going down that road and everything, let's give everybody that good old synopsis.
Hell yeah. A couple traveling through Willow Creek, California, in search of the Bigfoot legend, come into more than they bargained for when they stay alone in the woods.
Yeah, let's go look for a witch and Bigfoot. So I enjoyed the beginning, right? Because it starts out like any found footage. You're just from a camera angle, and in this case, they're driving in the car, right? Like a marriage banter back and forth, because they're they've probably been a couple already for so long.
It definitely starts out of kind of how I take it was like a sort of mockumentary thing that they're doing. I couldn't quite tell if it was like they were just traveling around just to document this because the guy is just a big fan of the Bigfoot legend, or if he's like working on this project. I never fully picked that up, but it's ultimately them out there staying in this town that's famous for its Bigfoot appearances and some famous video footage from back in the day. Patterson Gimlin footage is what they refer to it as, which is one of the most famous sightings of Bigfoot that was recorded.
That's that real old grainy one where it's actually
Right.
the Bigfoot with the stance, the walk, the run, that
Right,
iconic scene or footage, I should say.
right. Exactly, yeah. So it's basically they're going to that. They're going to the location of the Patterson Gimlin footage so that they can maybe capture Bigfoot of their own, and they go through the Bigfoot byway, which has like a little town in there, which everything is Bigfoot related. It's kind of similar to like near Area 51 or like Roswell, those types of places that really
Very
lean into
touristy.
the lore. Yeah, very
Right.
touristy, very touristy. So they had like the Bigfoot motel, and they had like a gas station. It was all Bigfoot themed. They had statues made out of wood and shit like that. So it's they definitely leaned into the tourism of Bigfoot, which I don't blame them for. But like you mentioned, like the banter between them. One thing I did point out, especially at the very beginning, was the fact that he was like telling her to like stop talking, and like the fact that she was
Yeah.
driving, and then he was quite pushy with her in the way that he was sort of instructing her and speaking to her. I guess they just didn't really
Yeah.
felt kind of
Yeah,
mean.
that dude's a real asshole. I'm just gonna say that. He's a real asshole. Like he was just telling her to stop talking, not to say, cut or anything like that. Like typical things that you would say during like a filming. I didn't like this guy right off the bat.
Yeah. I do like the way that it progresses into a more sort of comedy back and forth banter between the two of them. The type of sort of crude jokes that they're telling each other and like memes they're
Yeah.
calling each other and stuff. That definitely reminded me more of like a sort of childish kind of humor that I think that Bobcat Goldthwait would be famous for, especially when he was in Police Academy. So
Right.
I definitely saw touches of that throughout the movie, which I very much enjoyed.
The one thing that I enjoyed in this whole, them going into this town, it's very like touristy Bigfoot themed town. They stop at that restaurant and they have burgers, and they have the Bigfoot burger, and it's
Yeah,
the bun is in the shape of the Bigfoot's foot. Yeah, I want one of
yeah,
those.
yeah, that looked so good. It's like a giant like hoagie thing that's like shaped like a Bigfoot
It
footprint.
reminds it, it reminds me of a Mexican torta.
And what's that?
So think of it as like a puffy bun, right? It's a little bit dense, but it's not like your typical hamburger bun. Almost like a French bread loaf, but smaller. And it's got everybody does it differently, but typically it's like beans, your meat of choice, whether it's like carne asada or any kind of other Mexican meat. Some people put fried ham in there too, avocado, lettuce, tomato, sour cream, cheese. I mean, it's kind of like build it the way you want it, but typically that's how you would find a torta, well, at least here in South Texas.
Nice. This is like a Bigfoot torta.
Yeah, it's a big torta.
Exactly. Um, but yeah, the guy. Before we forget to introduce their names, we have Jim, who is the sort of host of this. He's mainly the guy that's on camera, presenting and talking to people through interviews. And then we have Kelly, who's his girlfriend. And this is quite a topic throughout the driving scenes that they have in this, which there's quite a few. But they discuss that she's like a skeptic. She's a non-believer in
Mhm.
what's going on here, and it leads to some conversation about their beliefs in the likes of Bigfoot and other cryptids and things like that. And I think watching it, if you're watching with other people, I think it also sort of puts you in that position to also have brief discussion about what you believe in, and that's kind of what we did when we watched it. We were talking about like, did we believe in Loch Ness monster and
Right.
Mothman? Like we're like having a bit of banter about that. So that's definitely again another point that I did like about this film. It definitely made you sort of start a conversation about the belief system in the cryptids for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of things that I wanted to point out was so they're in town, right, and they're interviewing the locals for any
Mhm.
kind of like sightings or any kind of information they can shed on Bigfoot sightings or what their belief is on Bigfoot. Um, One of the ones that stood out to me was the old lady that ran the museum or that managed the museum. She had been there like all her life, basically, or all of her working life. And this lady had zero belief in Bigfoot. Like she was like, no, never seen anything, never heard anything, but I work here. Um, and then he's all, what would you do if you saw a Bigfoot? Well, I don't really believe in it. So, I mean, if I saw one, I really wouldn't, I really wouldn't, be too concerned with it at all. So I don't know. This lady was very unenthusiastic, but I mean, most old people are, whenever you come up to them and you try to ask them questions they don't want to answer and stuff like that. So
Right, but which is quite interesting because I think like from what she does, it would have benefit her and the town, I reckon, to be a bit more like leaning into that tourism.
right,
There's
right.
there's definitely more enthusiastic people that we see, like the guy in the store or like the kind of like Bigfoot museum type thing, um, where they have all the like old cameras and things like that and memorabilia and things. So he's definitely more enthusiastic, even if he did have like these crazy ass eyes that were just popping out of his head every time he was looking at the camera.
Yeah. That's the guy that was at the bookstore, right? The one that they went to go get
Bookstore,
directions from.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it was at the bookstore. And that guy like screamed predator of some sort with his weird eyes. And yeah, he just kind of gave me the willies a little bit.
Yeah. That was Bigfoot Books is the name of the place. Everything's very original there. Like a lot like this movie, and that's definitely sarcasm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, but I digress. And when he's there, he's meeting with them, and he mentions the curse of Bluff Creek, which is sort of the creek where they're going through in order to get to where the site is for the film. So he tells them that it's kind of more prominent as they're going through because he explains about how people get lost in there is really the key of the key component of the story or the key information to take from the story, which is definitely apparent. We know that they're going to get lost as soon as they get out of the car. And like David mentioned a few episodes ago, when they do that last look at the car before they go away. So that was definitely a trope.
What I found that was kind of funny, and it's those little humor Easter eggs that are in there. I can't remember if it was after they left the bookstore or it was the next day when they came out of the motel, where the word leaf instead of leave was drawn on their window from the dust. Like if somebody comes and writes on your dirty car, and they put the word leaf like a tree leaf instead of leave. Like if they couldn't spell, or they were just trying to be like, I don't know. I think they just couldn't spell. It was
Yeah.
probably like a hillbillyish town. Everybody seemed kind of like still on AOL dial up there.
Yeah, most definitely. You do get some. There's some quite other interesting people that are in that sort of village area. They meet a guy called Tommy who ends up singing a song about
Yeah.
Patterson Gimlin going down to like shoot the footage. So there's like a folk song made of it. They meet with another older woman called Shauna, who claims that she saw Bigfoot as well. That's the other reason why this sort of, to me, felt more sort of mockumentary style, because of the fact that they were meeting with people who were sharing stories about their sightings of Bigfoot and their experiences of hearing things or people who've been affected by it or whatnot. So
Absolutely.
another point of them driving is one of the things that Kelly mentions is, which is a key sort of component for her not believing, is the fact that she said that she finds it odd that there's no body for any sort of Bigfoot that has been found, like a skeleton that's a strong point for her to say that she doesn't believe.
Here's my thing. So when they go out finally to the spot where they're gonna park and go into the woods, they come across this guy that's standing like right in the middle of the road, right? So they pull up and the guy comes, just kind of asking what they're doing there. And it's one of those scenarios where one asshole meets a bigger asshole and he turns into basically a pussy because the other asshole is a bigger asshole than him. Just tell him what you're going to want to do is, turn around and go back to town and get yourself a pie of fuck off and get some pictures and just leave town, basically, is what he told him. And, kind of freaked them out. And he kept telling Kelly to put the camera or turn off the camera. So she would put the camera down, and then she picked it back up. And he's like, put that camera down or stop filming me. And that dude was, you really didn't know at that point if that dude had a gun, a knife, what was going to happen. So naturally, out of fear, they're like, okay, let's go. But this dude still doesn't learn his lesson, right? He's like, it's okay, I've got another way in. So they go around a bit and they find another entrance into the woods, and that's where we begin our journey.
And then this is where it starts to kind of slow down a bit more.
Right.
One thing that I mentioned again, this is a point where, or this is an item that I'd give like a point to it for. But there is an 18-minute long scene, which is one take basically, with them when they're in the tent at night, and you see all like they're having their conversation and all that, and the proposal and stuff. So apparently that was 18 minutes long, that scene. And
oh, wow.
I think the movie itself runs at about 80 minutes.
About 80 minutes, yeah.
Basically 20 minutes of that is already covered by one scene. So I think it was like 5 days they took to shoot this. So having an 18-minute long scene in your movie that's an hour and 10 minutes or however long it is, that fills in a good chunk of time. But that's where it starts to drag a bit. The kudos I have for that is it kind of makes it feel a bit more realistic, that it is sort of real found footage in a way.
Right.
Is ultimately where it starts to go downhill.
Yeah, it really does. So, after you mentioned like the proposal and them talking, about that, and it cuts back into a while after that they wake up and, they start to hear the creaking and the noise outside the tent. That's where the mystery of, something that's out there outside the tent. What is it? What could it be? Is that Bigfoot? What I thought was weird was that in some instances, the growl when whatever it is outside the tent is close by, to me sounded like a mountain lion. And the guy inside the bookstore mentioned that you'll run into bears, mountain lions, things like that. So that's kind of what threw me off. Is I know what a mountain lion sounds like when it roars, and that didn't sell me on the whole Bigfoot thing. So that was one of the issues that I had with it.
One thing I did find out when I was doing some research before this is that Bobcat Goldthwait is actually the one that's doing all those like throaty like voices. So that's him in the background doing all that. So the director guy.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So he was making the noises, and I think they were clapping pieces of wood together to sort of give that sort of like cracking sound of like the branches or trees being broken by Bigfoot. So that's what they did to do that. And one thing I also noticed as well, which is because I watched this movie on DVD, they had a behind the scenes sort of scene, I guess, and it was showing you them making the Bigfoot footprints, and they had like this like sort of wooden or like foam, some carved outline of like a Bigfoot foot, and then they had like a strap on the top, so they would walk around with it.
Oh, kind of like foot slippers that went over the shoes.
Yes, yeah, it's like sliders,
Got it.
but it's like the
Right, right.
bottom of like this giant Bigfoot, and they were like walking in the sand and stuff to like,
To actually make the prints, yeah.
yeah. So I thought that was quite funny, seeing that. But ultimately, yeah, this is kind of where this film starts to take a bit of a dive. Throughout, it doesn't feel like a super. It's obviously not an original idea. It's definitely a few different movies that were sort of thrown together. You know, you see your elements of Blair Witch, which I think would maybe it comes across as like a nod to it, but when you really look at it, it just feels like it's just straight up like taken from Blair Witch in some aspects, which a lot of the found footage movies of that time, and sort of just after Blair Witch came out, they did. So I'm not surprised, but yeah, it definitely started to drag there. There was some impactful scenes during that sort of last portion, when like the start of the movie, you see like the little leaves or grass or whatever, and then we see at the end he's like pulled through the grass and like sort of like ripped apart and like that sort of thing off camera. You obviously don't see anything, which fair enough, but that scene, sort of that being pulled through the grass, was really well done. It was sort of quite creepy the way that it happened, and the shadow work that they did throughout when they're looking in the tent and stuff. Like I did enjoy those aspects.
Yeah, those were done really well. I just wasn't a fan of course, the animal growl outside the tent, and then you can tell it's a person, doing it, right? There's like no animalistic, parts to it.
Yeah, that's true. One thing I did notice though, when it's sort of close up, when they're sort of running through the woods, there is more of a growl that happens. So it's more of kind of like a signing call to, like, because as we find out, there's obviously more than one that are in the
woods. When it's at the very end, you start hearing oh, and then you hear like other ones in different parts.
Yeah.
You can feel that it's coming from different directions, telling you like there's a whole family. But ultimately in all of that, what part where they're getting chased and the guy gets attacked, and you just casually see a naked large woman in the woods wearing white underwear. Like, if that was even Bigfoot doesn't wear underwear.
Yeah, it was weird. I like you were saying earlier, there was stuff you didn't remember. I didn't quite remember that. When I watched it.
I don't know, man. It was like I appreciate what they were trying to do. Like, the beginning was good and everything like that, but if there was more context to, if this was actually like feral people or people in the town that were, creating this and actually killing people, like there was actually killers in the town creating all this, so there was some like kind of hints somewhere in there that were alluding towards that it wasn't really Bigfoot, that then it would have been more of a sell for me at the end. But they just kind of went this way, and I don't know, it just felt really flat for me.
Yeah, for me as well. It's and I think that's also the way I described it yesterday when we watched it. It just fell flat, and I've mentioned this before, and I think I'm always going to mention this, that like a lot of found footage, a lot of the problem people have is the way that it ends, mainly because the 3 points that you'll really remember from a movie is the beginning, some points in the middle, and the end. That's your 3 key points to really hit at the audience and try and make something memorable. And if it's done in a way that it's it's memorable for the wrong reasons, which I think this one kind of is. I didn't quite understand that either. When we were talking, I was sort of putting some ideas out there of like potential like skinwalkers or shapeshifter type things out there were posing as like a Bigfoot.
That was another thing that you mentioned too, that was also a possibility, that it could have been like a Wendigo shapeshifter,
right.
Something along that, even a werewolf,
Right, yeah, it could have been something else. And I think not knowing that and kind of like it's kind of like a lazy way of sort of being like, oh yeah, well you can figure it out yourself. It's like, well, it didn't really feel like there was much thought put into it from that.
There wasn't enough given to make me form an opinion as to what it could be. Like I really don't know. Like I could have, if they would have given like something, I could have said like, okay, it could be a shapeshifter, or it could be crazy people in the town, or feral people out in the woods. But there was nothing that could have like just hinted at a direction to something. It was just this, and this, and that's it.
And then it's finished.
Yeah, it just finished. I wasn't a real big fan of the ending, but I mean, like I said, the first half before we actually got to the tent part, everything was solid, man. Everything was going good. The banter back and forth, visiting people inside town, like all that was really well done. Talking to the locals, the weird guy in the bookstore, stopping at the local spots like the restaurant and stuff like that. That all helped to build up. But as soon as we got to this part, everything just like, we forgot about Bigfoot. We just went a different direction. And we don't know what that direction is.
Yeah, it was kind of like, yeah, let's just go for this direction. And with that, I mean, usually with these types of movies, there's going to be a lot of improv and sort of dialogue's not really set in place, which is fair, but
Right.
sometimes it can hinder a movie and not really move it forward.
Yeah.
With comedy, you can only go like so far, especially in these
Right.
types of movies. When it's done well, it's done well, and I think it definitely comes across in
Yeah.
some of the scenes like it's done well, but I think from the horror and aspects is kind of where it lacks, and that you can tell that right away.
Yeah.
But for like an intro to Bigfoot sort of found footage movies, I think it's, and people like it for a reason. I can definitely see where people would like it, but the ending for me definitely is the least favorite part. Sometimes it'll stick with you, and sometimes you think it sticks with you. And I think that was one of the things for me. Like I definitely thought it was much better before when I originally watched it, but seeing it again, there was definitely points where I sort of picked it apart a little bit.
I remember this a lot differently years ago when I saw it. I remembered being a bit more creepy when I saw it.
Yeah.
But of course, as times change, more films you watch, things that you experience, stuff like that, changes your perspective on things. And then, of course, analyzing it, because we're doing a podcast episode for it, so we're analyzing it front to start to finish. You start picking out all the issues with it, and you find the flaws in it. What else can I say?
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, honestly, like as a found footage movie, like I said, there's definitely great qualities to it where it's it feels like a found footage. There's definitely aspects that are done well, and for sort of first time director of a found footage movie, and doing that, like it definitely goes to show that like it's not easy to make it good.
Yeah,
If that makes
sure.
sense, right? Everyone just sort of thinks if you stick this formula in, it's gonna create a found footage movie, and it's gonna be just like the Blair Witch. And to a lot of people, that might be what you're looking for, but if you're looking for something more outside of the Blair Witch, then it's hard to get out of that if you use the exact same
Right.
formula.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, there's a fair amount of people that like this movie, and I mean, yeah, that's totally fine. Everybody has different tastes and different styles of found footage that they enjoy, things like that. But yeah, the beginning was good. The first half, the second half, not so much. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you on that. I will still. This is still a movie I'm going to recommend to people for sure.
I wouldn't derail from saying no, don't go watch this movie, because there are some good qualities in it. And if you're trying to go down the road of watching a Bigfoot movie, I mean, it's a good starting point. I mean, it's one of the more well-known ones, like Exists or Lost Coast Tapes. Movies like that that are sticking out, well known as far as Bigfoot movies go. So
I think it's a good starting point. You mentioned the Lost Coast tapes. That's definitely a favorite of mine. I really enjoyed seeing that.
I actually just saw that yesterday. So that's
Yeah.
everyone stay tuned for that, because we're definitely going to visit that down the road. That was an interesting one.
Yeah, for sure.
Not that I'm not a believer of Bigfoot, it's just not on the top tier of my cryptid scale. You know what I mean? There's so much. Bigfoot is so easy to fake, if that makes sense. So that's why it's hard for me to latch onto it and see it as a favorite, like Aliens or Mothman or something like that.
Before we jump into rating it, I think if you want to watch Willow Creek, then check it out on Amazon Prime, Tubi, and Freevee in the US, and it's on Tubi and Plex in Canada.
Yeah, I watched it on Prime, but yeah, Tubi tends to have a lot of found footage movies. It's just not easily displayed. Kind of got to search a bit through Tubi, but yeah, you can totally find it on there, no problem, if you don't mind the ads.
I watched it on DVD. We had a copy of it on DVD, so had to.
Well, isn't that special?
Yeah, I've actually found a good chunk of found footage movies lately. It's been pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw that stack you got the other day, man.
In terms of rating this, there's a lot of like, and I think that sort of outweighs some of the bad, for sure. There's definitely some flaws in this movie, but it's still an enjoyable movie to watch, and it's still one I'll recommend, even though it's not as original as you would hope. It definitely feels like the Bigfoot Witch Project is how I'll describe it. But yeah, overall, fairly enjoyed it. And for that, I'm going to give it 3 tapes.
Fantastic. Yeah. You and I are on the other side, on opposite sides of the spectrum on this one. The bad outweighed the good for me on this one. Sorry. For me, a lot of times with the movies, you know how you're talking about, there's 3 points that make it in the movie for you. The payoff for me is always the favorite part of the movie for me. So there's not a big payoff. It's not going to get a good score for me. It's like I said, the first half was good, so I'm not gonna, go the route of a burning tape. But for this one, I'll give it 2 tapes.
Yep. If you look up reviews for this and check Letterboxd, it's sitting at about a 2.3, 2.5 out of 5. That sort of makes sense to me. So I think between the both of us, we're at about right. Yeah, for me, it's a low 3 though. Like it's barely got.
You're teetering,
like a C
you're
minus.
Teetering between a 2 and a 3.
Yeah, honestly, 2.5 to 3.
Yeah.
I think would be where I'm at. Mainly, although that scene is long, I think it adds to the realism, and that sort of scrapes it a little bit more towards a 3 than a 2 or 2.5.
Yeah, I'm on the low spectrum of the 2, so you're on the low spectrum of the 3. So if we did half tapes, I'd probably get a 1.5 from me, but 2's fair.
So you're given like a D minus.
Yeah, it's slightly passing, but it'll do. That'll do, pig. That'll do.
Yeah, I was hoping I would like it a lot more than I did, but watching it again through that analytic lens, like it sort of, for me, it puts things under a microscope a bit more, and it just wasn't quite there for me. But definitely check it out. Again, Amazon, Tubi, Plex, Freevee, anywhere you can see it. Like, check it out for sure.
Don't let our low score derail you from watching this movie. Like I said in previous episodes, we all have different flavors when it comes to found footage. What didn't resonate with us may resonate with you. So definitely check it out and see what you think. And of course, always, if you do check it out or you have seen it, you can always comment on our Instagram, on our posts, and tell us what you thought about it. Maybe you have a different perspective than we do. We're always open to hear any kind of any feedback on the movies that we put out on episodes. So yeah.
And just before we wrap up on it, another thing I want to point out is that we didn't actually go over was the fact that dude fucking skinny dipped in that disgusting ass swamp creek thing.
I know, he was pickling his pickle out there in the creek, man.
Yeah, he just fucking pulls his pants down, dives right in.
Yeah, just out there floating hot dogs down the creek.
Yeah, this guy's catching amoebas in his wiener eye.
Yeah, that's. I definitely would have put a rubber band on the tip of my pecker if I had jumped in that creek, man. You never know what's gonna swim up your pee hole.
Oh yeah. But on that note, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you everyone for taking the time of your day to listen. Don't forget to follow us on social media at We Found a Tape, and anywhere you listen to podcasts, whether that is Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or on YouTube, all at We Found a Tape.
Be safe when you go in the woods, and don't forget, be kind and rewind.